Okay, welcome everybody to Finding Your Visual Signature. My name is John Kreidler. I'm a product specialist for Leica Camera USA. And thanks again for stopping by. What I want to do is to give you a glimpse into the world of Leica photography, uh, to give you ideas and thoughts about our lenses that are compatible with our cameras, as well as thoughts on you as photographers developing your own visual signature. So, what is a visual signature? To me, a visual signature is the way you as a photographer sees the world. You're capturing the world in a certain way, and there are many components then within that. There's, your point of view. There's how you process images, uh, and also focal length and what focal lengths you gravitate to, as well as compositional style. So for me, what I really like to do is I like to, when I'm doing street photography in particular, is to try and build a scene. So where I have a foreground, point of interest, middle ground, and background. And for me, I always like to shoot wide open. And that's how Leica lenses are optimized to work. And using our lenses on our cameras is the way that you're going to get the Leica look, meaning a very sharp plane of focus and then this very natural transition between foreground, point of point of focus, and I don't know what popped up here, and background, and just that creamy transition. So first off, let's take a look at some images taken, or talk a little bit about the M10 family, and then images taken with them. So the M10 family right now, there's three members. There's the M10P, it's a 24 megapixel camera. The M10 monochrome, being a black and white only camera, and then the Leica M10R. So the monochrome is a 40 megapixel sensor, as is the M10R. So right now there's a nice range of products. The monochrome, I guess I should first say that all three of these bodies are exactly the same. So the only real difference is the sensor. So at 24 megapixel, a lot of people really feel that's enough resolution for them, and it's been a great camera and just phenomenal. It's been out, I guess, now 3 years, and when it came out, it has this very quiet shutter, and that's one of those tactile things where you can feel the shutter release. So not like an electronic shutter, but and then you can hear it as a photographer, but the subject usually can't. And that's one of these, what I call a tactile feel. It's the way the camera feels, the way it sounds, the way when you turn a lens, how it feels, that a lot of people, is a reason why a lot of people really enjoy shooting our cameras. So the M10 monochrome, it has a 40 megapixel sensor. So this doesn't have any bare filter, so you get added ISO range as well as an increase in sharpness. And then the M10R has the bare filter, a similar 40 megapixel sensor at its base, and really does a great job rendering color that I consider to be very similar to our medium format camera, the S3. So when I'm shooting an M, there's a couple things that I do differently. The M, because it's manual focus, aperture priority or full manual exposure, it forces me to slow down and to think. But more than that, I'm looking at light differently. I'm looking at situations differently. I'm looking to photograph things that may have more emotional impact to me, or more things that where the lighting may just appear to be more interesting to me. But I tend to gravitate to these things when I'm holding an M camera, that if I'm holding a mirrorless camera, I don't shoot the same way or feel the same way about the subject. So here in Brooklyn, down at Dumbo, kind of coming up on a little wedding, being able to shoot a camera in low light because I'm looking through a viewfinder. I'm not looking through the lens, so I'm seeing the world unfiltered. But more importantly, it allows me to see just like I see with my eyes. I'm just looking through this glass viewfinder, then focusing with a rangefinder. And because of how the camera is made and its size, I can shoot at, in this case, a 1/25th of a second. So I get a little bit of movement in the bride's dress as I'm trying to photograph this. And that was something that when I saw that and I saw how they were trying to adjust her dress and how the dress was moving, I felt if I could shoot at a slower shutter speed, it would just add a little drama to it. And the only way I saw that was by slowing down. So here, photographing at the fishing pier now with the M10R, when as I walked towards the fishing pier, the one thing I did notice is this light. And in my mind's eye, this is exactly how I saw this shot ending up. A shadow casting from buildings that were behind me across the street. And to me, again, this is something that when I'm shooting an M, I gravitate to, where I'm looking for light and shadow. Here at the Mirror Maze, this is an example of normally what I try to do when I'm creating photography is to have this foreground point of interest in the green dune grass that kind of mirrors the green men that just landed for the Mirror Maze. And the interesting thing to me about this image is I had to work for it, I guess. Initially I was up on the boardwalk and I was trying to photograph people as they were interacting with the storefront, and I wasn't feeling it. So I walked down to the beach and saw the dune grass and kind of got low and kept getting lower and lower to the point where I'm almost obstructing the people that were originally my point of interest. But then with the viewfinder being able to stack this image with foreground, middle, and background. The other thing is being manual focus, a manual focusing camera. It's actually easier when I'm shooting this way because autofocus camera, it may want to grab the dune grass or it may want to grab, say, the people moving. For me, where I wanted the plane of focus was really on the storefront. So it's very easy to do that when using a rangefinder, and it's actually quicker, I think, many times working with a rangefinder like the M in terms of focus than with autofocus. So here, I wanted to see how the camera performed at high ISO. So here at 3200, and again, very natural looking color. And I just thought this scene was kind of interesting where, again, there's a lot of light and a lot of shadow. And it kind of speaks to the pandemic where the girl serving the future of ice cream, the Dipping Dots, is masked up. There's nobody there in front of her, where the family that's getting their ice cold Pepsi Cola with a pretzel and maybe a cotton candy are standing around unmasked just next to them. So again, kind of, a tattoo of time, a story that I'll remember. But again, just really I was really struck at how well the color reproduces at high ISO with this camera. So another advantage of the M is it's a small camera. You're easily dismissed as being, a tourist or just some guy shooting an old camera, and no one really pays attention to you. So this was the first Saturday after the election outside of Philadelphia around City Hall, and I wanted to photograph people that were celebrating or protesting or had something to say. And it was very easy to get close to someone here with a 35 millimeter lens where I may have only been 5 or 6 feet away, where if I had a big camera, it would be more intimidating, and I wouldn't get that. I'd have people looking at me instead of people looking at whatever was going on down the street. This is an image, again, taken with the M10R, but with our reissue Noctilux. So part of what we do is we have lenses that render differently. So when we're shooting wide open, as in this case, we get what would be called or considered the Leica look. So a very sharp plane of focus. If we look at that diagonal of the curious brain sign, we kind of see the fall off, and then we see this magical, beautiful bokeh of that's created by the lights from the city and the Brooklyn Bridge. So again, this is a lens that allows you to tell a narrative with your image. It has a certain look and it has a certain feel. So that's different than, say, something like this with the 35 Summilux. They're just different. And that's one of the things that Leica does very well, is that we make different lenses that render differently. Now, this lens, same lens, 2 stops down, I don't have a picture of it, but it changes personality. It actually gets much sharper, which is kind of interesting. So again, lenses render differently, wide open and closed down just a few stops. Here with the 21 in Bryant Park at the skating rink, again, just trying to build the layers, foreground, middle, background, shooting at 21. And this is actually utilizing Leica's built-in perspective control. So we have firmware with our M10, P, R, and monochrome that actually records how the camera is positioned. And then when that image is imported to Lightroom, you can actually do a very accurate correction. So, and that was the result of this. Just really very, very interesting to use. I was testing it with a 21, and it's a lot of fun. It does a great job. Here in an M10R image in DC, again, converted to black and white, which sometimes I do. So I have my shadow kind of on the building, and I was waiting there for 15 or 20 minutes, hoping the security guard would come out a little bit more into the light. This is as close as we got to it. So this being the visitor center at the Capitol that was closed again due to the pandemic. So again, an M camera allowing me to stand around, I'm sure I was noticed, but not being bothered, let's say, and just creating this image. Again, I'm gravitated to light and shadow. I like to, the camera itself, the M camera particularly, just allows me to slow down, allows me to stay in places for a longer period of time and going unnoticed. So here, just some street shots in New York. One thing I always like to do is I always like to see how lenses react when shooting straight into the sun, trying to get them to flare as much as possible. So the M lens, this is pretty much how M lenses flare, yet still holding highlights, and this poor little dog that's being dragged across Madison Avenue, I think at this point. To me, it was just kind of a neat image. Again, shot with the 21, and just kind of tells a little bit of a story. Here with the 75 Noctilux, again, this would be an image that someone probably wouldn't think of shooting with the 75 Noctilux. This lens in particular is great for portraiture, has a really very nice bokeh when you're photographing portraits or you're photographing something or something close. but here at a distance, just incredibly sharp lens, and really one of our signature lenses of the modern lens era. I thought this was funny, a porta potty that's call ahead. Again, shot with the 75 Noctilux and the monochrome here in New York. And it's just, again, you get an idea of the rendering and the bokeh that you can get. So how different, it's the same lens, you get different looks depending on aperture and focusing and camera to subject distance. And that's something that as you explore your visual signature, as you try to find your way and basically find the way that you want to describe or photograph life and make your commentary on it, it's great to see lots of examples of imaging so that you know what you connect with and what you don't necessarily connect with. So here another monochrome image. This was in Miami, and again shooting with the M10 monochrome. I was across the street here with the 35, and this the security guard had told us we had tried to go in and photograph kind of the valet area of this building, and we weren't permitted to, so we went just across the street. And I think we were there 20 minutes or so, kind of walking around. And I just stayed right there because the image I wanted was this, where I wanted the security guard to just pop out into that light. And you get this really nice light and shadow feel. And again, to me, these are kind of the images, again, that I'd like to seek out when shooting the M. Okay. So the SL2 has two members to its family. So there's now the SL2 and the SL2S. So there's a difference in price. The SL2S is less expensive, but it's not a cheaper camera. So I just wanted to put out a laundry list of all the features that they have the same, including build quality, focusing, EVF, and many of the same features. So when we look at the two, basically the SL2, 47 megapixel versus the SL2S, a 24 megapixel backside illuminated sensor. And both cameras have things like multi-shot and buffer. So if you're someone that likes to shoot continuously a lot, the SL2S has an advantage where you can get 61 shots DNG shooting continuously before it starts to slow. It also has unlimited video recording for those into video. And we have a new firmware update that'll happen sometime in spring 2021 that's going to add more features. And many people really like the blacked out Leica logo. Just makes it a little more discreet. So for me, I enjoy shooting both of these cameras. The 24 megapixel camera, let me back up, I guess. So shooting 47 megapixel for about a year and a half on the SL2, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about shooting a camera then with 24 megapixel. But to be honest, I'm not really missing that much resolution. And if there are images that I'd want to create that I need a bigger file, like a landscape, I can always use the multi-shot and get a 96 megapixel image. So for me, the SL2S does, I think, a little better job in terms of color at high ISO. And really, because of that, the sensor, it's a 24 megapixel backside illuminated sensor. It's the first camera that we've had with this sensor. I think it really does a spectacular job. So for those that may not miss the resolution. So this is a brief glance of some of the firmware updates that are coming for the SL2S. Improved autofocus, but just about everything else is video centric, where we're trying to put as much as we can in the camera. So a videographer or cinematographer wouldn't necessarily need a separate monitor. Things like waveform, tally light, segmented recording, etc. So there's some of the things that are coming. So, but let's get back to visual signature, because that's really what I'd like to talk about, and talk about the lenses and how they differ. So here's three lenses that are similar focal lengths, not identical, but to give you an idea of the range of rendering that we offer. So the SL2 with the 75 millimeter Noctilux that we saw the Empire State Building shot and the call ahead shot. So here shooting wide open, focusing as close as 0.2 meters. 0.2. It's about 2 feet. So I guess that's 0.6. I'm not sure. Sorry. Meters, feet. A little more than 2 feet, let's say. Anyway, focusing close, how it's very sharp, and how the bokeh, how that the lens, the fall off is. Then using an S lens, so our medium format lenses can be adapted to the SL2 or SL2S in a very different way, but in terms of its fall off. So very sharp plane of focus, and we see the rendering there, as well as the native 90 millimeter aposummicron SL lens. So again, different rendering, different f-stops, but just to give you an idea of kind of the representation or the range of which the different renderings that our cameras offer. So we have a line of three zoom lenses, 16, 35, 24-90, and 90 to 280. So for me, the 24-90 is kind of the go-to lens. It's a lens that is really a workhorse lens for me. It's like 6 prime lenses in one. So here at 90 millimeters, photographing some of the wildlife down at Dumbo, just incredibly sharp in the detail, the feathers of the skull, and just how the bokeh looks, just that fall off and the creaminess, where we still know, even at f4, we know it's the Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan skyline. So here, kind of the same thing, showing now at 60 millimeter, the idea that we can have everything kind of in focus, very sharp, and again, just a lens that has multiple personalities and multiple uses, even being able to stop action and still get a sharp picture of a skateboarder randomly cutting through by Jane's Carousel. But all these images, the lighting and the rendering of the lenses isn't really dramatic, but it can be if you have the right light. So again, here, just at a car show in the early morning, I saw the light just wrapping on this M6, and the SL2 with the 24-90 captured this image. So I do enjoy car photography quite a bit, and that's one of the things that when I'm shooting the SL2, I really enjoy it, because the SL2 gives me a level of precision where I know exactly where the camera is going to focus, and the lenses have a cleaner rendering. They're less emotional, but for things like something like this, where I'm trying to maybe document a day at the track with the Porsche Club, being able to capture an image like this, that's kind of giving a feeling of, the people, the paddock, and kind of what's going on in the pre-race as well as during the race. So again, an SL2 with a 90 to 280, or an SL2S with a 90 to 280, I can capture images like this that I really can't get with an M. An M being manual focus and not having lenses that really give you that reach. And these cars are going at a pretty good clip. It's difficult even with a camera like an SL2 or an SL2S to capture images like this. And with an M, I think it would be virtually impossible. So here is our lineup of prime lenses. So all the Summicrons, which would be the 35, the 50, 75, and 90, are all Apo Summicron F2s. The lens on the left, the 50, is the 50 Summilux. That's not apochromatic. But here, just to give you some ideas, here's the 28, which is apochromatic down at the Cherry Blossom Festival. Again, trying to build that, layer that image. Even with an SL2, I'm still trying to, create these images where we have a very sharp plane of focus, and then kind of the people in the middle blurry, and the Jefferson Memorial kind of in the background, but we still know what it is. So again, I'm very impressed with the 28 in terms of its sharpness. It's a lens I haven't had that much time to shoot. But the little bit I have, I've really been impressed with how sharp it is, and how the bokeh and how it renders. So here with the 35, and again, sharpness and detail. What I like about this, again, with the SL2, just the side light and how that always brings out more detail and sharpness. You can even see the brush strokes on the 33 sign on the head badge of this Harley. So again, looking at ways that these lenses render, and all these lenses that are the Apo Summicron SL lenses all will render slightly beyond 200 megapixel. So here with a 50 on an SL2 in Miami, trying to see if I could get the lens to flare. And that's one thing that it's virtually impossible to get an native SL lens to flare like an M lens can. And it's by design. We do a lot more light dampening that creates creates a lens structure so that you're not seeing the flare. And this, to me, is an image that could have been very easily created with an M camera. It's very much an image that many Leica photographers like to photograph, where there's lots of silhouettes and bright light. So again, it is possible to create M-like images with the SL2. So here, doing a portrait with the 75, and again, just really enjoy the sharpness and the amount of detail that we get. And even here with the 90, doing a portrait, I still get that fall off that you get. So, granted, there's more space than here, but we're still, the rendering of the wall it's hard to tell how much of a fall off there is. But here, even with the 90, so the native lens, it's very much possible to kind of make these lenses, with separation and creative lighting, make them look, those renderings more emotional. So again, it's just a different way to really work with the lens. So I had alluded to this before. So we have, I want to say it's over 170 lenses that we've made since really 1954, and even some before that. There were thread mount lenses that all could be used with our mirrorless camera, the L mount cameras. So whether it's an SL or a CL or SL2 or SL2S, we have native lenses in the SL line. We have TL lenses that are designed to cover APS-C size sensors, so like the TL or the CL, but they can also be used on a full frame camera in a crop mode. We have probably more than 70 M lenses. So if you like the rendering of a certain M lens, but want convenience of an electronic viewfinder that's built in, M lenses like, say, a Noctilux or a 35 Summilux, or even a vintage 35, like a Bokeh King, all would work perfectly fine and would render very much as they did when they were initially designed. Will all work with the adapter. The S lens that I showed one sample of before, you can get an S adapter. For the S lenses, the contrast is a little different than M lenses or the native lenses. To me, it kind of splits the difference in terms of contrast. And again, it would be another way, another line of lenses to explore rendering and how things, how your subject would end up looking, as well as our back catalog of R lenses, which there's quite a number out and about, and the values have really soared really since mirrorless came about, as well as cine lenses. So there's all sorts of cine lenses, including the Lights cine line of lenses that are Oscar winning themselves. Okay, so what I wanted to do here, this kind of enters into almost a scientific exploration of lenses and lens rendering, just to give you an idea, further idea of how lenses render. So we saw examples of photographs and practical applications of different lenses. Now, if we had the same subject and we're going to have similar focal lengths, if not the same, and same f-stops, and just look at the differences in terms of rendering. So in the 75 Noctilux, here at f2.5, we see, like here in this area of the lone leaf on the left, as well as the highlight of this white flower, how soft the focus is, or how three-dimensional that image looks. Here with an S lens, that's a 70 millimeter at the same f-stop. Now we've got more detail here, but we also have more detail, more contrast here in the highlights. And then with the 75 Apo Summicron SL lens, again, even more sharpness and more detail. So to me, it's interesting to see three focal lengths, same aperture, and how the renderings change. So depending on your vision and how you want to communicate your relationship to the subject or the event or the story that you're trying to create, or the narrative you're trying to create with your lenses, there are different options for rendering. So here, same lenses now stop down to 5.6. So here, now we're starting to get more detail here and more, again, in the highlights. Same with the S lens, similar, but look here at the Apo 75. Now we have so much detail that the image, the flowers are more interesting, arguably, but the flowers themselves might look a little less three-dimensional than they did at 2.5. So again, it's your choice in how you want your images to look and render. Now, I thought this was particularly interesting. So looking at the 24-90 at 75 millimeters and the 75 Apo Summicron, just seeing the difference in terms of three-dimensional between, again, our lone leaf here and the highlights. So the zoom ends up, in my opinion, looking more three-dimensional than the 75. The 75 really holds everything together at 5.6. So again, to me, this is one of the reasons why I really enjoy shooting the 24-90 zoom. It's a lens that's just, it's hard to leave behind because it does so much and has so many great looks. So we also have a relationship with the L-mount Alliance. So Leica, Panasonic, and Sigma are all using the same lens mount, the L mount. So this is a mount that Leica designed. Initially, the cameras that came out, I guess it was the T that had that mount, uh, was an APS-C size sensor, but all along it was designed for a full frame sensor. So both Sigma and Panasonic tested the mount and decided it was something that they would love to work with. So we've created this alliance. So now Sigma and Panasonic both make cameras and lenses that work with our L mount. So we can use Panasonic and Sigma lenses on Leica cameras, and we can use Leica lenses on Panasonic and Sigma cameras. So there's a lot going on, and a lot of times I'll get asked, what do you think about this Panasonic lens? What do you think about this Sigma lens? So here I have a few examples that we can kind of maybe pick apart or look at. So these were taken, on the left is the Leica 24 to 90 at 90 millimeters. And on the right is the Panasonic 24 to 105, also at 90 millimeters. And at, I want to say they're both at 5.6. What I tell people is, based on this, the Panasonic is a sharp lens. To me, the biggest difference is in the three-dimensionality of it, is how we're rendering at the same f-stop, something that transition between plane of focus and background, to me, is more natural. It's more three-dimensional than what's going on here. But in terms of actual image sharpness, now, of course, I didn't focus exactly at the same point, but they're both sharp lenses. So, and again, that's the story. Here's another example, kind of given the same idea here. If we look in how here, if we're looking at the bokeh of the lens here, to me, it's more natural. It's not yelling and screaming, I'm bokeh, I'm here, pay attention to me. But again, that's the difference. And it's not that one is better than the other, or one is right and one is wrong. It's how do these lenses, if you're going to use them, how do they fit your visual signature? How do they fit how you see the world, or how you want to communicate that you see the world? So here is an example with Sigma. So this is at 70 millimeters. So the 24 to 90, the Leica, again on the left, and the Sigma 24 to 70, that's a 2.8, both at f4 on the right. And again, very similar. I would say equally as sharp. That it's the contrast, it's the bokeh. I feel our lens looks, again, more three-dimensional than the Sigma, but it's still a great lens in terms of its sharpness and what it's able to achieve. And the color is different. And the same with Panasonic, the color is rendering differently, and that's all part of the color science. So so here I just got some takeaways here. So the Leica M10 camera, family of cameras, is a true rangefinder experience. Actually, if you wanted to, with the camera turned off, you could set aperture, shutter speed, focus, and ISO, all with the camera turned off. But the camera makes you feel a certain way when you use it. It's discreet. It's machined to a level of precision that makes you feel special when you shoot it. And for me, it makes me see things in a different way, and it slows me down. The SL2 family, I think if you're really looking to explore your visual signature, there are many different lenses available. and not just Leica lenses, but lenses from Sigma and Panasonic that are all designed to work automatically with each other. The SL2, I didn't speak much about it, but they're designed for both still and motion or video as a cinematographer. So if that's something that you're looking to do, the SL2 does that where the M family doesn't. The SL2 is also sealed against dust and splashes. So I know Doug had mentioned earlier he had a little mishap with a Q2 on a bottle of water, but the SL2 and the SL2S are actually sealed to a level of IP54. So significant weather sealing. You still have to be intelligent and not change lenses or batteries or memory cards in the rain. And if it is moist, like this one is, you want to make sure you dry off the camera, towel it off before you change anything and open up the camera. The L-mount lenses offer many possibilities for lens rendering. And to me, lens rendering, I guess if you haven't guessed, is very important. And to me, it's a key component when we're talking about our visual signature and how we want to communicate that. And for us, the bottom line is Leica lenses are going to perform best on Leica cameras because we optimize our lenses to work with our system and our sensor, and it's all designed to work together. So that is all I have, and I'm going to stop, hopefully here, stop my share. So if there are any questions? Everybody fell asleep? Okay. I guess feel free to unmute if you have a question that you'd like to ask. That would be great.
I didn't fall asleep. I wanted to say thank you. That was great.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I have a couple colleagues that like when I record my training, they'll download it and they'll say, yeah, if I ever have trouble falling asleep, I just play your video and in 5 minutes I'm out.
Yeah, but you got these great photos to look at.
Yeah.
I love
I appreciate
the one of the wedding. The one of the wedding I really liked. I really liked the curious brain shot. I have no idea where that is or what that is, but it was a great shot.
Yeah, that's in Dumbo, in that same area around Jane's Carousel, and we were filming an episode of Leica Tech Talks, and we had a sample lens of the 50 Noctilux f1.2 reissue, and I was playing around with it. It's an incredible lens, and just a lot of fun, just the way it renders. So.
The other one that really got me was the cherry blossoms. Because that's a 28, but that's not the 28 that's on the Q2.
Right. And, you know, to be honest, that the Q2, that lens is pretty close, but it's not an Apo. So, you know, it's not the same. I think that lens that's on the Q2, because it's a closed system, that in the design of it, there are many things that Peter Carva and the lens team could do to create a very not only sharp lens, but a lens that renders three-dimensionally. It also has a built-in macro that in many cases, I find it sharper than an M lens, like the 28 Summicron M. So the Q is, you know, it's really a gateway to our lifestyle. It definitely
Right.
is a camera that has brought many people to the brand, and that lens is definitely a key component
Well, I
to
want
it.
to be able to get a shot like that cherry blossom shot. That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's that's one place in DC I always try to get to in early April. Uh, it's because it's a lot of fun. This year, I didn't make it last year because of the pandemic. This year, um, it was there were more people than I expected, um, and I think after I went, they started to limit how many people were there in the tidal basin.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions about maybe not what I covered, but about Leica cameras? We've got Doug and Jim also here. Yes, Laurie, you can unmute.
I gather the cameras are all made in Germany nowadays.
Yes, yeah. The M, all the M's are, and the SL2s are also, and
The
Q2s.
high-end.
Yeah.
Okay, if nobody else is going to ask any questions.
Okay.
Okay, your best tips on focusing that rangefinder for the M series.
Okay. I guess there's a couple things I would work on. First is to learn the focal length. So I have a little game that I like to play, and I'm looking at a situation, a place, a field of view, and I want to know how far do I have to stand to get from here to here in. Am I 5 feet away? Am I 6 feet away? Am I 8 feet away? So that's the first thing, is you start to learn that focal length. Then in terms of focusing, I mean, there's a couple things that people do depending on the lens. So a lot of times, if I'm shooting, say when I was shooting the 21 Summilux, um, what I would do is set my lens to 5.6, and I would use the hyperfocal scale or the distance scale on the lens and set the focus point so that infinity is at the f5.6 far point, and then the front might be 4 feet. So with that lens, um, I could basically be a point and shoot camera. It's going to be as sharp at 5.6 from 4 feet to almost infinity anywhere I'd shoot it. So if I was shooting from the hip or just walking around, so again, that's something that a lot of street photographers do. And I mean, that to me, I like 21 and I like that focal range, but I know the Summilux, which is an f1.4 that's kind of a bigger lens. I know on me that in general that's wasted. I'm not going to shoot wide open because a lot of times when I'm shooting that kind of lens, I'm going to be at f4, 5.6. So, there are other options for that.
That's right.
The other thing that I do, or I do it myself when so a lot of times I'll shoot the SL2 or SL2S for a period of time, and then I have to go and not relearn the rangefinder, but refresh it in my mind. When I start to focus, if I'm going to use the rangefinder, not hyperfocal, what I do is I move the focus tab to infinity. So I'm only moving in that one direction, kind of that, right? So, and then when I'm done, I move it back. So every time when I go to focus, I'm starting from the same point. I mean, for me, that works. Some people, like a lot of, like shooting with Alan Schaller quite a bit, he's got like this tape measure in his brain.
Lucky guy.
Well, what it is, he'll look at the sidewalk and he said, okay, each of these, each of these pavement lines is a meter.
That's
so I
brilliant.
know, okay, they're two away. So I'm at 2 meters. So that's like his trick. Sorry, Alan. But that's definitely one thing to learn and to start to get the idea of that distance. But I find, starting at infinity and working in a lot of times on many lenses, like a 35, that's only that might only be a 30-degree shift in movement.
Right.
So it's usually pretty quick. The one thing that I do struggle with is with glasses. You want to make sure that you're looking straight on. Otherwise, it looks like the rangefinder is misaligned. Like you'll start to see things like they're here, and it's just the refraction through, So, you can get diopters or an EVF for it, but basically, that's something that I'm keyed into right away. If I see something shifted, I just, move my eye.
Thank you.
Hello, John. How's everybody doing?
We're doing good. We were just answering a few questions, but it's gone quiet. I'm sure you have some questions, Evelyn. I'm sure you have questions, Evelyn.
I just have questions. Yeah, no, I think everybody seems to be kind of wrapping up with everything. So thanks to all of you that are still in the session. But feel free, I think, as soon as we're done here. But thank you so much to Jim and John and everybody at Leica that supported us in this crazy first time adventure. We hope that you enjoyed it, and there'll be certainly lots of follow-up. We're going to send a survey to everyone to see what you think, and then we'll be in touch.
That's great. Evelyn, thank you so much. And Doug French, thank you. And just our congratulations to the Camera Store for just a great program. We're really happy to be a part of it. So thank you.
Wonderful. And I think you guys just have a few more minutes. So if there's any last questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we're just going to be wrapping up all the rooms and we'll have recordings of the sessions put up tomorrow, and we'll send everybody a link as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Take care.